Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Changing Face of Mining. My name is Peggy Bell, and I am Chief Growth Officer of the Femina Collective. I'm coming today from the Machee-Sagig Anishinaabeg territory, otherwise known as Peterborough, Ontario. And was wondering what to do for my land acknowledgement today. And I think that where I settled on was the difference between appreciation and appropriation. And that has been told to me by a friend who is Indigenous that appreciation, you can tell when you're appreciating when the knowledge and the activities continue to stay within the power of the other culture, right? So if we are guests at a powwow, that we are not taking pictures of it. If we are buying Indigenous art, we're buying it from an authentic Indigenous person, and that when we continue to hold space for Indigenous cultures in business, that we continue to understand the provenance of that knowledge and give acknowledgement to that. So I leave you with that land acknowledgement today. Today, my guest is Diane Gies. So I met Diane in Mexico for the first time with the Femina Collective, and she does work with the Femina Collective. So I invite you, Diane, to tell me a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll get into it.
Thank you so much, Peggy. I am so grateful to be here. It's such a privilege to be part of different platforms and share my story and shine the light on the topic of the day. And so thank you so much for that. We met just over a year and a half ago now, and it was such an incredible time to spend the time with the women, but also with you and getting to know you a little bit more and really tapping into what I love doing, which is helping people, bring out the best versions of themselves and really shine the light on their intuitiveness. So it's really I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And so, we are going to discuss maybe what people call the softer side of leadership. And then there's always the adage that it's not necessarily softer, because oftentimes it's harder for leaders to tap into this more, I don't want to say more emotional, because that's not that's not the case, but more authentic piece of who they are. Yeah, raw. Exactly. Yeah. That's a great word.
Yeah.
So why don't you set the stage and tell us how this became part of your life?
Yeah, my story. So as you know, we got to know each other. I have a very diverse, kind of eclectic background in terms of my career. I started well over 3 decades ago in the social work field, and primarily did a lot of one-on-one work and group work and facilitating, speaking, that kind of thing, and really helping to build the inner strength of individuals. And then kind of midlife, I switched gears and I went into the medical field, and it had a little bit to do with having, my firstborn he was born very ill, critically ill. We weren't sure whether he was going to survive. We spent a lot of time in the hospital. So it was really kind of that need to know what goes on behind the scenes. So kind of midlife, I went into the medical field and spent well over a decade in the hospital working in microbiology, doing all the testing for the hospital. And then I kind of veered back to my original, which is loving people and loving to kind of to work one-on-one. And so I am now the professor at a local college where I teach the medical lab science program, but also have the opportunity to shape great minds and get them prepped to become medical health professionals. So my story actually really starts, I've been passionate about human behavior and just giving, and that's just been who I am my whole entire life. So in 2018, I think that's when kind of things really peaked for me. I was that woman that was just doing so much out there. I was doing corporate travel. So I was traveling once a month. I was teaching, I was coaching, I was speaking, I was facilitating, I was working in the lab. And I had 2 adult children as well that I was parenting. And so like all of us, we're just givers. I had to be more, I had to do more. It just never, my need was never satisfied. And I was happy doing what I was doing. But kind of near the end of 2018, I started not feeling well. For the most part, I'm generally a healthy individual, but I knew something was wrong. But like all of us, we're like, as soon as I have a break in my schedule, I'll take care of it. And I powered through it thinking maybe it's just I'll cut out some gluten and maybe I'll try a different diet. I don't know. But I was starting to get pretty severe. I wasn't well. My abdominal pain was just getting too much. January of 2019, I got ambulanced in. And they really weren't sure what was going on. They put me on a whole slew of antibiotics and let me go after a couple of days. And I got better and I had to catch up on work because I had things to do. And 3 weeks later, landed in the hospital again. So this kind of went on and off. I was in and out of hospital between January and May of 2019. And then in May of 2019, I was ambulanced in one last time, went into emergency surgery. I came out with 12 inches of my colon cut out. I came out with a colostomy. And then 2 weeks after that was told that I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And so you can imagine it wasn't something that I was expecting. I figured they took care of it after surgery. And so I was paralyzed with fear. And I remember sitting in my bed, in the hospital bed, and thinking to myself, if only I had. Back in 2018, if only I paid attention, maybe if I did this, maybe if I didn't do so much of this and all the things that we do in hindsight, right? It was too late. So now it was time to make a decision on what I was going to do moving forward. And I remember in 2018, so many times, like many of us do, we say, please just give me some more time. I just need more time. And in hindsight now, you look at all the meetings that were canceled and the trips that were canceled. That was my time that I was given. And I filled it up with all the other stuff. I'm perfect. I'm going to fill it up with the rest of my work stuff instead of taking care of me. And so I remember sitting in the hospital bed. And when you hit that low, when you're thinking this is stage 4, we have nowhere else to go from here. One, I made a decision that I wasn't, dying wasn't an option. So that was one. And two, I remember hearing clearly in my ear, you asked us for time, and now we're giving it to you.
Yep.
And so I had nothing but time because I had to now figure out how I was going to get myself better. And so I was given all the time in the world, but I shouldn't say all the time in the world. I was given time, but I wasn't sure how much time I had. So I had to reprioritize everything. And I remember thinking to myself, if I'm given a second chance at life, that I would do whatever I could to make a difference and to shine the light on this topic. And that is to listen to yourself, to understand the importance of how much information we have within us that we could use to guide us. But we're too busy looking at the external world. We're looking at how we need to be more and do more. And the one thing that came out of all of this was I realized that, it didn't matter how much I did for other people, I would never be enough because I wasn't enough for myself. And that was a big onion peel that I had to kind of peel back and say, whoa. And that's what I use now to work with when I'm working with women and looking at, why do you do what you do?
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, I need to finish this and I need to do that and accomplish this. And by the time I'm this age, I'll have this. And I mean, these are all great things. And if you asked me back in 2018, what would you have shaved time? Like where would you have shaved the time? I would have said, I don't know, because I liked doing everything that I was doing. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't putting myself first. And I think that's what we need to look at now is really, why are you not taking the time out for yourself? And what can we do about that? So that's where my wellness program comes in. You were a part of that, the 7-day wellness challenge. That was something that I created last year, a year and a half ago, just as my way of sharing my journey, allowing women to stop and take time for themselves to kind of turn inward and help them kind of step one on how to do that. And it kind of went viral. People were, it was free on my website. And women were coming back saying, oh my gosh, I loved it, but I didn't finish it because I didn't have any guidance and I kind of left it and I didn't have time. And so then we created the group. And so that's kind of where we're going with that now. So hoping to provide some more support, offer it as a tool, but also to provide that support. So,
yeah, I think that the group was instrumental in me making some changes. And so I would say, like, my healing journey started a couple of years ago, and I made some pretty big changes. Like actually more than that, maybe closer to 4 years ago. And I think that's when a lot of people started to think about, what does life look like, right? So we're in a pandemic, we're sitting with our family, our kids are home all the time, or if you don't have kids, you're with your dogs, or whatever, your pets, and whatever this looks like. And a lot of people came to that kind of piece where they're like, why am I doing this? Mm-hmm. And that's a little bit of that intuition that comes out. I'll tell you a funny story. I was once, this is years and years and years ago, and I loved my job, but I was on the road all the time. I live in the greater Toronto area, and so I was driving maybe 3 hours a day to go meet clients. And I almost got into an accident on the 401, which is Canada's busiest stretch of highway. And I remember yelling out loud, like completely unprompted, what the F am I doing with my life?
Right.
And that's like lightning bolt into intuition, right? Like sometimes it's a little bit niggly, and then other times it like kind of like, oh, okay, so obviously something's here that I need to address. Yeah. And the pandemic was another time for that. And so I guess like, we'll start with like, what does intuition feel like? Like what can't, like, is it lightning bolts? Is it like, you know, that little scratch on the inside of the stomach? Is it maybe not sleeping a few nights in a row?
Yeah, good question. And that's what people, they want the tangible kind of, tell me what it is, what it feels like. Tell me so I can relate to it. And I always say to people, unless you are kind of disconnected from the external world and silencing the mind, it's going to be difficult to tap into that. And this is where we start talking about meditation. So I attended a week-long retreat with Deepak Chopra and his team, because I figured if there's anybody that can meditate, it's going to be Deepak. So I want to be trained by the best. Yeah. And I learned so much. It wasn't so much about the technique. It was understanding what it is. And so to answer your question, it's not as simple to say, what is it? It can be different for everyone. But at the end of the day, we all have it. We're born with it. We come into this world very pure, with pure intentions. We come into this world intuitively. We would be guided to do what we need to do. But unfortunately, we get very programmed by societal kind of rules, what you can and can't do, parental rules, what you should and shouldn't say, culturally, you name it. We get kind of molded into what we think we're supposed to be feeling and thinking. And so when we get about 30 to 40 years old, that's that feeling of like discontentment where you go, something doesn't feel right, but you don't know what it is. So all I try to say to women or anybody is, what is it that, where are you feeling it? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I just feel uneasy. And as soon as you feel uneasy, that is your true self trying to come out saying, I've had enough. I've had enough of being told how I should do this. And then the whole, well, if I don't, then we start piling the guilt on. And it's the ego that starts taking over our lives. But right around 35, 40, we start kind of going, not feeling it. Been doing everything. I did everything right. I went to school, got my degree, got my house, got married, had the children. I don't know, still not feeling it. So we go for more. And we ignore that uneasiness. Yeah. So in terms of intuition, what I always say to anybody who I work with, I'm like, tell me how you're feeling right now. And they go, well, I think I feel like, and so they go up here. Yeah. And so they go, I think I feel sad, or I think I feel. So I'm like, okay, so we're not connected with here. We're connected with what we know from the past. And if you can predict it, basically, if you can say whatever it is that you're thinking, it's something that's from the past. You're pulling information from the past. So to really know what your intuition is telling you, you have to silence your mind. And people go, well, I can't do that. I'm just too, exactly my point. If you're saying you can't do that, that's because you are too busy thinking about tomorrow based on what happened yesterday, because what happened yesterday, we can't have that happen again, or I have to repeat it, or I have to change it. So we're constantly living in the past or the future. So in order to tap into what you're feeling now, you need to come here now. And so for you, when you said, I almost had an accident and I screamed out, what the F? That's because that accident brought you to a point where you're like, oh my God, this could have been over. Like, it could have been over for me. I I need to restructure and rethink. And for me, it was a stage 4 cancer diagnosis where I had nowhere else to go after stage 4. That was like standing on the cliff going, so now what? And I had to slowly kind of go backwards and go, oh my gosh. And all of a sudden, all those priorities, all those things that if you would have asked me, can you shave time off here and can you take that and not do that? I'd be like, no, 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 because they were all important. They were all priority. But let me tell you, when you get to the point where you're like, so we're not sure how long you have left. Now what's a priority? And all of a sudden you're like, all right. So family, friends, that became my priority. Tapping into me. What is my purpose? Why am I here? What can I do to make a difference even in one life today? And that's how I wake up every morning. I ask the higher beings, the higher powers, what do you want of me today? And I feel like I am always put in the right path. Like people will show up when they have to. And that feeling of, for me, I've tapped into, that kind of butterfly feeling, or that, it feels right. And that to me is what intuition is. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it feels like, I was thinking about this yesterday. For me, it feels like I'm not working, right? I am, because I'm working with clients that I am value aligned with and who I want to see their own success. I'm invested in their success. I'm using my skills in a way that is serving a greater purpose.
Yes.
And so it doesn't feel like I'm like, oh, come on. Right. And sometimes that still happens. Like, obviously, we do live in the real world where something may not work out the way you want it to work out.
Yes.
But on the balance, I don't wake up and go, oh, it's only Wednesday, or, how is it Monday? The Sunday scaries don't exist in my world.
Yeah. Right. So. Yeah. And I think part of it is you're doing what you intuitively know you should be doing. But then there's that odd time where you start getting the pressures of like, and let's face it, we have bills to pay, we have mouths to feed, we have kids to put through university or whatever it is. And so we get afraid and we're like, oh, time's running out and I need to be doing this. And we get caught up with the external world. And I think that, when I would talk to individuals and say, well, intuitively, what do you feel? And they go, oh, that's just too woo-woo for me. Yeah. It's like, I can't try. Are you trying to tell me I should just sit down and let it all unfold? And I'm like, well, I mean, the reality is we do have jobs to go to and we do have bills to pay. But I think the important thing to understand is that you are always being provided with experiences in your life to give you clues as to where you're going next. And so we have free will. We can do whatever and go wherever and whatever it is. But I mean, intuitively, we're on a mission to do something. And so for me, it's the need to connect every morning and go, what do you want me to do? So that when I ask that question and I go into my work, I work in a lab all day. So I work with students. I have
You're in science, right?
Yeah. That I need to be aware of what my question was for today, which is, how can I help? Mm-hmm. And so when a student is struggling or they come to me and say, I don't have the confidence to do this, that's the higher being going, hey, you asked, how can I help? Here's your clue. But if I'm so focused on my schedule and my agenda and my next meeting, and oh my gosh, I got to get through here, and then I got a 5:00 meeting, and then I got to go take my kids to soccer, and then I got to get groceries, I'm not paying attention to the experience that's being brought to me. And so that's my mission, is to kind of help individuals to really hone in on that, and they can take it with them I don't care what career you're in, whether you want to be a CEO or a president or an entrepreneur, or you want to have children, or you want to be in the medical field, doesn't really matter. I tap into, how can we turn inwards and look at what makes you feel good? Where do you see yourself? What does your future self look like? And then surrender, and then allow for those experiences to happen. And you still have to act on them. So it's not like you sit down on the couch and go, all right, well, I'm going to wait for that $1 million to come on in because I put it out there. Yeah. You set your intention, but you go about your day and you stay present as to what these experiences are. So
So,
that's, yeah.
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No.
Just on that, when you set the intention, because then I want to get to the mantra piece that I think will really benefit the audience. But when you set that intention and you are actively in the present, do do the clues become clearer? Like for me it did. Like for me it was like, okay, so I have one, we'll call it quote unquote failed business. It, didn't work out. Resource becoming didn't work out. But as I move into my next stage of life, the steps are becoming more clear. This is why it didn't work out, because I'm learning from the past, but this is where I want to be, and this is how I want to serve um, the mining sector or natural resources, and this is how we're going to move forward. Or is it still kind of like send me a sign and like your chocolate chip cookie has less chocolate chips because you're not going in the right direction? And so yeah, like how does that, like, does it become more clear?
Yeah, I think the higher, the more that we're able to kind of, how do I say and it's a very difficult thing to do. Don't get me wrong. It's not something that you can just sit down and go, oh, okay, so I think I'm going to be more present now and things will be clear, because we are, as a society in general, 99.9% of people out there are too caught up in their with their mind, thinking with their mind, and what's stored in our mind is all the past experiences, and that's how we shape or make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I've always been fascinated with human behavior, and I can tell within 5 minutes of somebody behaving a certain way what their past is like, because that's what we do. So becoming more present and taking that opportunity, even if it's a half an hour, okay, even 15 minutes, because some women, when I mention the challenge and you're going to do meditation, they're like, oh,
Yeah.
I can't sit still. The reality is that if you can close your eyes, 70% of our receptors are in our eyes. So that means that if you're sitting there and you attempt to be quiet and silence your mind, when you are looking, you see things around you that remind you of things. Oh yeah, right. Oh God, laundry. Don't forget laundry. And oh God, I have a stain on my carpet. Why? I need to go get the. So closing your eyes during meditation and going inward will help you to hone in on what you're feeling at the moment, and that becomes more and more clear as you control your inner world versus what needs to happen out there.
Yeah.
And that's another big thing that we do, is try to control the external world in order to satisfy what we want. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, right, about expectations. And we have all these expectations of other people. Well, why aren't they doing this? And this is my goal and I expect them to do whatever. And so that's where we need to really hone in on ourselves. So
Yeah. A little bit off topic, but not really, is one of my favorite things that you discuss is receiving gifts, right? And so you have these expectations, and maybe one of your expectations of yourself is to be a giving, kind, supportive person. But you should be also able to allow others to give that back to you, because as good as it makes you feel, it's going to make that person feel good. And why wouldn't you want to be able to give that gift to somebody?
Exactly right. And that is easier said than done. And that was one of the lessons that I got. And I'm writing a book currently, and the title is How Cancer Saved My Life.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all these things that I learned through this diagnosis, one of which was the act of excuse me, graciously receiving.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that I wasn't a receiver. I was like, I just gave. And then when we have to look at is really, what is that about? And I had to dig deep and realize that if you don't feel like you are enough, or if somewhere along the line you've received a message and you created a story and a belief system that you are not worthy, which many of us don't realize that that's kind of what we carry around. Mm-hmm. I'm not worthy. You can't receive. It's very difficult. So when I was flat on my back and I was not able to work, I was not able to do anything, I had a group of people who came to and created this event, and there's over 200 people that showed up. And I remember walking in and being absolutely mind blown, thinking maybe 8 people will show because I have 8 close friends. I don't know. And all these people came, and I said, I don't get it. What what is this? And I said, it's your time to now receive, because you give so much of yourself. And that was the aha moment that I had, was that I need to learn to graciously receive, because you're right. Why would we rob someone of that opportunity? But giving is a lot easier than receiving. So
It is. It is. It's so true.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So tell me about nothing to prove. Oh, I always forget this.
Nothing to hide and nothing to
Nothing to
defend.
defend. Yeah.
Yes, I am I can't take ownership for that. I heard that well over 15 years ago from somebody that I follow, and I thought, wow. And it was just this hit, and everybody loves it when I say it. And that is my mantra every day. I believe with every fiber of my being that if you can get to as close to living authentically as possible, you will know what to do next. You'll just be guided, and that means picking jobs or careers or titles or earning more money. It will work its way out. But nothing to prove, nothing to hide, and nothing to defend. If you can do those three, get through a day, you are living authentically. And so, easier said than done. That is my mantra. I wake up, I say, let me be the best person I can be to anybody who crosses my path. And I have nothing to prove, nothing to hide, nothing to defend. And so it's very difficult, because often we're in our job and we have somebody that says, what is this all about? Now, immediately you're trying to defend yourself and you're trying to prove something. And at the end of the day, I check in with myself and I ask, where have I fallen from grace? And I say, why am I feeling off? I feel off. And I'll tap into, did I have something to prove? No. Did I have something to hide? No. Did I have something to defend? Oh, right. This is what I did. And so that's how I know specifically that day I was trying to defend. And then I start breaking it down. Why? Why did I need to defend? Well, because I felt like, and often that's from all my past messages that I received, that I created a belief system, that I created a story that tells me the second that something shows up in my life, that's a trigger, and I get off and we have to try to prove, defend, or hide. Often we're trying to hide how we feel. We walk around with this big smile on our face, and then we go behind closed doors and we just crumble. So we've been hiding how we're feeling or proving. And this was something that I talked to Beth and yourself about, coming into the mining industry, like working with women in the industry. I'm not from the industry. And so trying to help women to find their authentic self. And it dawned on me that every single day in your line of work, you have to prove yourself as a woman. You have to defend yourself as a woman. And I thought, oh my gosh, I need to rethink this. And how do we work that into helping you to still live authentically and be happy at what you do? So that's kind of saying, okay, let's separate work. And when you come home, are you then able to, nothing to prove, nothing to hide, nothing to defend? So
Yeah. And I think that's a mantra that really anybody can incorporate into their lives, like living that authentic leadership piece, is starting to just kind of like go home. Did I treat everybody nice today? Was I kind today?
Yes.
Okay. I was not kind to so-and-so. Why was I not kind? Because I had nothing to prove, nothing. Which one did I? And then you can start to understand reactions from why you're giving the reactions. I've always come from a place of some sort of compassion when somebody is not being kind to me. Well, what is it that they're going on in their life? And so I've always put myself on that, right? Which means I think that's important, but it also means that I am now potentially not standing up for myself in a way that is fair to me and authentic to me, right? So if you can flip that script to say, wait a second, I yelled at so-and-so, or I did such and such, what was my reasoning behind that? You can start to be in that moment when you're in leadership, which is becoming more and more important to keeping talent and to keeping people on, is that, am I somebody that somebody would want to work for?
Right.
Maybe not. And why am I not? And how does that relate back to that?
And I think that no amount of, don't get me wrong, like you need to go through courses and degrees and certificates as a leader and developing all these kind of, professional development type of things. But at the end of the day, if you struggle tapping into you, which many of us have a hard time doing, we automatically go into, but this is why I did it. And yes, you may be a great leader. You may be a great leader, but when you go home behind closed doors, how do you feel? Are you exhausted? Are you just completely drained that you are wanting to just be like, rah, when you're out there, but just putting up this like, oh, we're good. That's hiding. You're hiding something. So how can we take that information, go home, close the doors, and now look into ourselves and go intuitively, how am I feeling about what happened today? How can I be a better leader? How can I make a difference in their life? And yes, you're right, understanding what the other person is going through. That's human behavior. People don't behave the way they behave just because. They didn't come out into this world from the womb into the world going, you know what? I think I'm just going to be, a jerk to everybody and wreak havoc on everything, right? We don't. There's something that happened to us in our previous kind of in the past. And the more emotional connection there was to that experience, the more it becomes ingrained, the more it becomes a belief system, the more your behavior is on that. So again, can you tap into yourself as leaders? Are you able to really, truly, genuinely self-assess and say, where am I? Where am I going with this? And why do I do what I do? And reducing that stress level as well as leaders. I think people think that they have no choice. They have to put in 14-hour days to get through those meetings and this and that. Yeah. But what are you doing for yourself? Why are you doing that, by the way? Everybody says, well, I don't have time for myself. This is what I heard a lot of. I don't have the time to. I said, you don't have time for 15 minutes for yourself? No, because I have this and then the kids and then groceries and then I got to go to work and then meetings and this. And I believe it. Don't get me wrong. I was that woman. I was like, if I wasn't on a trip, I was at work, right? But why? Yeah. Why do you feel that? Why are you, everybody has 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week. Everyone, without exception. So why is it that some people can take that time out for themselves and others can't? Well, because they don't have as crazy of a schedule as I do. You're right. I mean, you're not wrong. But why is your schedule crazy?
Yeah, and I think it's the ownership to some degree over that choice. Like if there's one thing that I have been finding lately is more and more women that I speak to, and Beth had written a article about this, is that more and more women are choosing self-employment for a variety of reasons. And one of them is to gain that balance. Because I understand that you have work commitments, but the other side of it is are your work commitments, is that an organization that you want to work for? Mm-hmm. Who is so entrenched on your time? Mm-hmm. Or is that something that you can somehow start to evolve in your organization? Mm-hmm. And start to say, maybe you're COO and you have a lovely CEO who might be a man, and you say, you know what? No, on Friday afternoon, I'm cutting out early because my daughter has a rugby game. So my daughter plays rugby. And who knows, maybe your CEO will be like, oh, that's fantastic because my son has a hockey game and I want to go, right? So I'm not saying this is like perfect world type piece, but, right. Little ripples make the big waves. And how can we start to, instead of risking losing really talented women to entrepreneurship, which is a whole other, I think is amazing, the energy of the women rising in entrepreneurship. But how are we making that space for people, and what are we doing so that they can feel safe enough to say, I'm not going to that 3:00 meeting. Yeah. Or I'm going to yoga class, not even so-and-so has a rugby game. I'm going to yoga class that day, and no, I'm not going to be there.
Yeah. But the where we need to get to though, and I think you're right, if that's one step, but yes. I think it's even getting to that point for somebody to say, yeah. I'd like to take that time off. They won't, because they're so hard on themselves saying, I don't have time for that. I would love it, but I don't have it. Almost waiting for somebody to give them permission permission to do that. So this is what I help women do, is give yourself permission and tell me why you wouldn't want to cut out for an hour to go do something. Well, because I don't have time. Okay, in your current schedule, you're right. But let's look at, and that's what I had to do, was I had to look at, why did I do all those things? Because I loved all of them. And if somebody said to me, cut one out, I'd be like I said, I'd be like, I don't have time to cut. I like them all. But now realizing why I did it is this much deeper rooted kind of, I need to be enough. I need to be enough for my employer, my employee, my colleagues, my kids, my family, right? I need to be enough. And that came from a message that I created this story, and I'm not enough, and didn't even realize that I was saying it to myself, but I was through actions. So through everything that I'm doing. So putting in 16-hour days, I get it. Sometimes you have to, but really, why are you? Right. Yeah. And why are you not taking 1 hour of your time? Because a lot of times women who sit down to sit down and meditate and quiet their mind, and their mind is going all else because they don't feel that this is important enough. The meeting tomorrow is way more important than sitting here and tapping in. Right.
Which would ultimately, if you are sitting in and tapping in, you might go to that meeting far more prepared.
Absolutely. Let's not even get into, what the thoughts and how that produces chemicals in your body, and you've got, cortisol running through your body, and you're, I'm all over the place. So calming that down and breathing and being really focused on your inner self tells your brain that you're good, and then it produces different hormones, which then allows you to be a lot more productive. But again, easier said than done. But that's the kind of stuff that I love working with, with individuals, and saying, let's look at kind of what your behaviors are and how are you feeling. And people go, I don't have time to think about how I'm feeling. I'm too busy. So I'm like, okay. Yeah. And they come when they're ready. So.
Yeah, I think that was one of my favorite parts about doing the program this summer, was like, we were all kind of like, when's your hour? When are you doing your? And so, right? And a lot of us did it on Sundays, and because that's what we had available. But it was, comparing notes on when's your hour? How are you doing that? And
I think that was purposely done, where I said, I'm not going to tell you what hour you choose. You have 7 days. And we calculated, I gave it in real form, like 24 hours a day times 7. That's how many hours in a day. And you sleep this many hours. So I'm sure in 1 week you can find 1 hour. And women were like, okay, cool. I can find 1 hour. I'm like, I'm going to choose. I said, but then when you choose it, that's your non-negotiable. You stay on that hour. And they're like, I got this. 7 a.m. Tuesday mornings. And then they'd come on Sunday and be like, well, it was good. And I was like, I'm not here to judge. I get it. Yeah. That's how we start. We're like, all right, let's talk about the why then. I don't care why, like in terms of your meeting or whatever, but let's talk about why that wasn't important enough for you. And that's the real thing. So tapping into your intuition, we all have it intuitively. When you have those kind of good feelings and you think, I feel like I'm on the right track, that's your intuition saying, keep going. But then the ego gets uncomfortable. The ego is based all on the external world. Hey, you're chilling too much. We got deadlines to meet. Don't be like that. And then you hear the chatter, and now you're in your head, and you no longer say, I feel good about it, but you go, I think this is the way I'm supposed to do it. And that's what we heard a lot, that language, when we were doing that group wellness, and women would come back, because all the women that were in the group were very powerful leaders that had to be structured and had to think. And so they would come back and go, well, I think I'm doing good.
Do you feel like you're doing good?
Do you feel like you're doing good? Oh, wait, hang on. That's different.
So you are the Femina Collective wellness expert with the experience. I feel like there's probably a better title than that.
I don't know if we have an actual title, but I'm so excited and so overwhelmed with emotion, and I'm so happy. I've had the opportunity to work with the Femina women for the last couple of years now as an advisor, and then so the experience is starting in January, and as you know, there's going to be the kind of 10 women in this group, and I'm the exclusive wellness coach, where I'll be working with each woman to really look at, let's look at one personal goal that you would like to set for yourself for the year. And no pressure, no judgment, no forcing. I'm not here to prove anything. I'm here to share my story and kind of say, this is where I come from and this is what I've learned from it. And if I can share that and it resonates with women and they go, hey, I'd really like to learn to take that hour for myself and really just tap into me. So yeah, that's kind of what I'll be doing with everyone. It's kind of new. So I'm going to be using my wellness challenge as kind of the base, and start tapping into some mini goals and looking at the intuitive self. So
I love that. I'm looking forward to seeing what you bring and watching all those women flourish and achieve new things and new heights. The final question is what would the Diane of today tell the Diane of maybe the social work years? What advice would you give her?
You have nothing to prove, nothing to hide, and nothing to defend.
That's perfect.
That would have been the best advice for me. At that point, again, we are so programmed to think a certain way, be a certain way, societal, expectations, cultural expectations, work expectations. And so we try to fit into that, to be that person. And it just, we lose ourselves. And so, yeah, I would have loved to hear that. I probably would have went, what are you talking about?
Yeah, right?
Anyway, but that would have been
but I'm on the right path. I'm about to have babies. I'm good to go.
So that's the current me that would say that, and really, really say you are enough. And I think we don't hear that enough nowadays too, that we need to really tap into understanding that our past experiences are just that. They were experiences, they were life lessons, they were your assignments, is what I like to say. I always ask, what is my assignment for the day? And when I have a crappy experience in the day and I'm cussing all over the place, because I'm human, don't think that I don't get angry, and but I say, that was my experience. That's my assignment for today. Yeah. Thank you. And then what do I do with it? So yeah, everything's an assignment. So that's what I would have given myself the heads up as well.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. I'm sure a lot of us could do that to our younger selves. Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. I look forward to whatever the next year brings. And just excited.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always a pleasure, Peggy. And I'm so grateful for you and our friendship and what you're doing out in the world. So thank you for this. And I look forward to seeing what 2025 brings as well. So.
Amazing. Okay, everyone. Diane is tagged in the caption, so you can find her LinkedIn profile there with connections to Diane's website. And please visit her and interact and learn more. So, and have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you all in a couple of weeks.